Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and he and I are recording this show on Monday, May 4th, 2020. So, Drew, how have you been spending your Star Wars day?
Well, I've just been working. I went to the grocery store, as you know, and that was my own, journey to a galaxy far, far away. And I'm really I haven't watched Star Wars Gallery: The Mandalorian yet, so I'm looking forward to watching that with my wife later today.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of ironic because Taika Waititi is this very first one is about the directors, and he's a big chunk of it. And of course, we just had that news about Taika. What is it? He's going to co-write or write and direct?
Co-write and direct a new feature. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice whose quotes were not in that press release, Jim?
Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That is a little interesting.
Yeah. Watch that space is what I'll say. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the question here is, because face it, Taika's got Thor: Love and Thunder teed up. In fact, what was he? He was just talking last month there about how I guess his is the only film on the planet that's not put off schedule by COVID-19. They're still going to begin production when they're supposed to begin. In fact, didn't they just move up the release date by like a week?
Well, I mean, they moved it back because it was originally, you remember this one was supposed to be November of 2021.
That's right.
And
okay.
Doctor Strange 2, in the shuffle, Doctor Strange 2 took that spot. So now this will be in February of 2022. And that's going to be a big year for Marvel because you've also got Captain Marvel 2 and Black Panther 2.
Yeah.
So I'll really have to redo that list, Jim, for Collider pretty soon with all these movies coming out.
Yeah, speaking of which, thank you. Is that 50 movies that you did?
45, Jim. It took me so long.
It was a great article, but again, as I told you, it's like, thank you. Now another 100 hours of film that I have to go watch. But I know. Well, speaking of things we had to watch, just last night, the second half of season 4 of Rick and Morty debuted on Adult Swim. So did we watch?
Yes, of course, Jim. I stayed up late. I'm dedicated to watching the episode and to talking about it on the show. And yeah, it was pretty friggin' meta. You're right. It was up its own ass like few animated shows ever have been.
And that's the thing. I honestly feel bad. I mean, you and I talk about Rick and Morty all the time because we enjoy the writing, we enjoy the attitude. Right now, this show, if you're just coming through the door and you grab a random episode from this point in the show's life, there's just no way you will understand anything.
Yeah.
I
mean, very smart, but...
Right, but conversely, though, I mean, think about it. That you and I were talking about back in February when Star Wars Clone Wars, the last episode of that ran on Netflix, season 6, in 2014.
Right.
They dropped all the episodes in March. And so here we are 6 years later, and the show starts up again. And I remember you and I think it was mostly me complaining about the fact you looked at those first couple of episodes, and it was just this whole notion of they were so inside baseball. And it's just sort of like, how is anybody walking through the door going to hook up with this show?
Yeah, I agree.
But here's the thing, I just this morning, I'm not sure why we were up as early as we were, but Nancy and I were up at like 5:30 this morning, and I had the computer fired up by 6 so I could then watch Victory and Death, the final episode of season 7. And I have to say that, I was completely wrong about this. Dave Filoni and his team, they started with like the Bad Batch episodes and, dealing with the clones, and it's like, there's no way that anybody's going to get hooked in the show. And seriously, again, I'm up at 6 in the morning because I want to see how this plays out, because especially the last 4 were so incredibly well done.
Yeah. And they really went out on top, I got to say.
I agree.
And then it's interesting, too, to think, because you watched Rebels as well, right?
Yeah.
So how many of these plot threads kind of continued or were resolved in Rebels between Obi-Wan ultimately killing Maul on Tatooine, or Ahsoka going out in search of Ezra. You know, there's a lot of things that it was sort of interesting because there was resolution, but there wasn't like, it didn't wrap everything up because we've had these other adventures. And especially with the, you know, revelation that Rosario Dawson is going to play Ahsoka in Mandalorian season 2, you know, this character and this world have a lot to offer still.
Very much so. Very much so. But at the same time, the irony is, as soon as I finished watching that, I then went over to The Rise of Skywalker, just basically to watch the 15 minutes that I'd missed when Nancy and I went and saw it in theaters because I fell asleep. And, you know, the irony is these last 4 episodes of Clone Wars were so much more entertaining and so much better storytelling than The Rise of Skywalker.
Correct.
You know?
What part did you fall asleep in?
I fell asleep. Again, I apologize, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the film yet, but remember when Kylo Ren and Rey are having the duel on the party planet, and they end up, this is where Rey first learns that maybe she has Emperor-like powers and blows up the shuttle.
Yes.
And then there's that whole weird left turn where the only way they can find out what's written on the dagger is to go to this different planet and basically erase C-3PO's memory, which then is immediately negated, isn't it? You know, by going like some other. That was the chunk I fell asleep during. I think I woke up as they were flying up, having secured the captain's disc, and we were going to go up to Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer and try to rescue Chewie. But it was just one of these things where it's like...
Did you rewatch the whole movie?
No.
Oh,
I literally just watched that 15 minutes because you know, the thing is, Nancy gave me for Christmas the remote control Dio, you know, and it was this whole thing of, it's a great toy, but, you know, you don't understand where he comes into the movie or the significance of him. So that now I know. And it's like, on the other hand, I will never get those 15 minutes back. Anyway, but again, I did that this morning, caught up on all the Star Wars stuff that dropped for May the 4th. But this past weekend, made it through all 8 episodes of Prop Culture. You put up some pretty positive stuff about that on Twitter, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I really liked it. I haven't gotten through all of them yet, so you're going to have to tell a story about Mary Poppins, Jim. But I watched with Katie. I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Nightmare Before Christmas and Tron. So I'm halfway through. I'm loving it. Yeah.
Well, I will say this much. This series of documentaries are so well put together, so entertaining that, look, I will flat out say this. I hated the Chronicles of Narnia films, you know, that Disney made, largely because they were kind of a cynical move on Michael Eisner's part. Do you remember when they got announced? I mean, there was literally this 2-page spread in USA Today that Disney has acquired the film rights with Walden Media to make the Chronicles of Narnia film. It was so nakedly a please look away from the Save Disney movement, you know, and more to the point, it's like the Harry Potters, you know, I think they were 2 films in at that point and were basically printing money. And it's like, okay, this hopefully will be our Harry Potter. We'll get at least 5 movies out of this.
Yeah.
And
that's 2 movies later, Jim, and they're out.
Well, in fact, do you remember that? I mean, literally, what is it? The Blu-ray DVD had come out for Prince Caspian. As the story was explained to me, they had literally sent lumber down to Baja, California. They were going to shoot Voyage of the Dawn Treader there in the tank that James Cameron's Titanic was shot in. And, I mean, the lumber's there. They're committed to beginning production, and it's December of 2008. And they look at the sales for Caspian and go, no, we're going to get out of this business. You know, then Fox came along, I guess, in January of 2009 and agreed to pick up the series. But even they bailed after Dawn Treader, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, to say how entertaining, how well put together Prop Culture is, after watching the Chronicles of Narnia thing, it made me think, you know, maybe I was too hard on those films. Maybe I have to circle back on them because it just, you know, the way Dan presented the props and the costumes gave me pause. On the other hand, I love what he did. You were talking about the Roger Rabbit thing. I love his interview with Christopher Lloyd and, him talking about when he killed the shoe in the film. That was supposedly his favorite moment because it showed you how evil Judge Doom was. Or for that matter, the wonderful story that Andreas Deja told about how every so often, don't get me wrong, Bob Hoskins did a masterful job as Eddie Valiant. But every so often, the sight lines wouldn't match up. And so Andreas would do things, get moments like that, like have Roger stand on the tip of his toes so he was in the right sight line.
That was so great. And also, we've talked about this before, but having Mike Giambo and Chris Buck talk about the original version of Roger Rabbit. That was so cool.
Yeah. Well, when he revealed that the suspender outfit actually came from the cover of Gary Wolf's book. So, anyway, trust me, folks, again, if you're looking for something fun to watch while we're all still in quarantine.
Well, but Jim, do you have any props?
Okay. Yes. Well, actually, it's Nancy who acquired this. And basically what this is for the ink and paint club sequence of the movie. One of the things they actually show in the Roger Rabbit episode of Prop Culture is they show the large rubber Roger Rabbit that they'd bring on set. So again, the actors could, this is how tall Roger is. This is where he's standing in the shot, and get your sight line and then pull it out. But for the ink and paint club, they didn't do rubber figures. What they did are cut out pieces of plywood. So they did pieces of plywood that were the right height for the penguins, and then they did pieces of plywood that were the right height for Daffy and Donald to use on stage for the dueling piano sequence. And so the way it was explained to me that one of the animators who's working with Richard Williams over in London, that's primarily where the animation unit for Roger Rabbit was located. That unit broke up, and they then went to work for Walt Disney Studios in Florida, the fish tank thing at Disney MGM. They took this with them, and at some point offered it to Nancy, who bought it, and now Donald is standing in the upstairs hallway at our house. Only every so often I run into him, and he's just the right height to really gouge you bad.
Well, we're going to need photos of this, Jim, so please take some shots.
Okay, we'll throw it up on Twitter just ahead of this show going live.
Have you seen this guy's Instagram account, speaking of social media? Like the amount of stuff he has?
No, I have not.
I've never really understood the prop collection sort of game, but he's got some pretty amazing stuff. He's got the Bat Gremlin from Gremlins 2 and things like that.
God.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But again, something to stress here that and in fact, he talks about on the show during the Tron episode that the toughest part about the prop collecting business is you'll see an item, and in fact, they actually go to an auction house, don't they? That is found what is it? The Tron throwy ball thing. It's a very technical term, folks.
Yes.
The Tron throwy ball thing. And he's like, I've only ever seen one of these before, but he talks about how props, will go into people's private collections and never be seen again, and what a shame it is. And in fact, to give Dan a lot of credit, there's this great story that they tell in the Mary Poppins episode where I guess the way this works, there was a chocolate company that cut a deal with Disney during the original release of Mary Poppins. And they had 3 different levels of prizes, but the top prize, if you won this competition, was you got the carpet bag, the actual carpet bag from Mary Poppins with $10,000 in it.
Whoa.
So what ends up happening is that there was this guy who won the competition. So the head of the advertising company goes to his home with the bag and the money. And the guy goes, look, nothing personal here, but I just want the money. I don't want the bag. And so the advertising exec takes the bag home, puts it in the attic, and it sits there for 30 years. And eventually, a family member or thereabouts, realizes what this is. And word gets out to the prop collecting community. And what's kind of interesting is Dan and a couple of other collectors decided, it's kind of a great Indiana Jones type moment, to the effect of this belongs in a museum. And so what they did is they bought the carpet bag and then gave it to the Walt Disney Archive. So the fact that, again, you and I both know there are creepy prop collectors out there. And
oh, yeah.
Dan doesn't seem to be that. Anyway, go check that out. On the other hand, you pointed out that Brad Bird is now taking over hosting The Essentials over at Turner Classic, right?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. He's doing it every Saturday night. Of course, I missed this week. So, did you see it?
I did as well. No, and it was Singing in the Rain.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah. I would love to hear his insights, and I'm a huge Bird fan. I know Nancy is ready to leave you for Brad Bird at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, pretty much that we have an understanding.
Okay, good.
I think I've told this story that if I'm run over in traffic and laying there, spread across several lanes, and Brad Bird is walking up the street on the other side, Nancy has permission to step over me and go, maybe wave to me as she runs off, toward Brad Bird. But yeah, Singing in the Rain was this past Saturday night. Coming up on this coming Saturday night, May 9th, is the Billy Wilder Ace in the Hole, which...
Love that movie.
But it's so cynical. I mean, it's got an amazing performance by Kirk Douglas, but it's so, just beyond cynical. And then the week after that, we get Buster Keaton's The General, which I love any chance of seeing that, though, to be honest, better to see it on a big screen. But he's doing this all the way through January of 2021.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the last film that's scheduled is The Music Man from '62. There's a surprising number of musicals.
Interesting, isn't it? Since he's supposedly working on a musical right now.
Is he really?
Yes.
Oh, ooh, okay.
I don't know how much I can say about it, but he's definitely working on a musical with Michael Giacchino. So, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
So we might have to watch these to kind of get clues as to what that is. You know what I mean?
Okay, because he's got Guys and Dolls in there.
Yeah.
He's got
started with Singing in the Rain. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Speaking of folks who direct for Pixar, we have the news about Josh Cooley. So this is a Transformers movie, but it's an animated Transformers movie, right?
Prequel set on Cybertron.
Mm-hmm.
Which you saw Bumblebee, right?
Well, yeah.
So I imagine it'll kind of have that look of the first 5 minutes of that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you were kind of hoping that they go back to ILM.
Yeah, because it's Paramount and E1, and they're neither really. I mean, Paramount has an animation studio, but we haven't really. They have Skydance Animation primarily, which we haven't even seen a movie from them yet. So I'm wondering if ILM is going to do the whole movie like Rango or Strange Magic. I mean, they've been doing all the Transformers movies since the first Michael Bay movie, and I think they've only gotten better and better. I loved Bumblebee, so I think that would be really cool. They did Rango, they did Strange Magic, so I feel like they could pull it off, and I feel like that would be a great fit with Josh and his sensibilities.
Now, speaking of which, you talked about Bumblebee, which of course was directed by Travis Knight from Laika. And Bumblebee was released to theaters back in December of 2018. And then we got Missing Link, which did you see the piece Deadline did last week about the biggest money losers for 2019? And
yes.
The fifth on the list was actually Missing Link, I guess.
Yeah, didn't that surprise you a little bit? I can't believe that it even cost $100 million, let alone lost $100 million.
Yeah, I know. Conversely, though, what's kind of cool, and especially, let me be completely upfront here, folks. I really want Laika to stay in business. I love what they do. I've been on board since Coraline, and, I think you and I have talked about Paranorman a bunch of times, just sort of, what a wonderful film that is. So we want these guys to stay in operation, but I want to stress here, there's so many of the entertainment companies that have put their staffs on furlough and reduced salaries and that sort of thing. But did you see what Laika did?
No, what did they do?
That animation studio was supposed to stay closed through May 1st. And face it, we're in this weird situation where different states are opening at different times and so on and so forth. But what Leica did is all of their employees, which were sent home, were paid in full and kept full benefits. The whole notion is that, yeah, okay, we're facing a bad time, but it's not your fault. And so go home and don't worry about salary. Don't worry about your health benefits. And when you can get back here, you can get back here. So
what you're telling me is it's good to have Daddy Nike came in and wrote a check for everybody. That's what you're trying to...
I just, whatever it takes to keep that studio making movies. I
agree.
By the way, if we're being completely fair here, the number one money loser for 2019 was X-Men Dark Planet. What did they say? That lost $133 million for, I guess, split between 20th Century Fox and Disney.
Did you ever see it?
I did not.
It's miserable, Jim. It is absolutely, yeah. I think I would rather have elective, dental surgery than have to watch that movie again.
Well, which brings us to our next topic of things that people aren't watching. Okay, I always pronounce this wrong. Quibi,
Jim. Don't quibble. Just watch
don't quibble about Quibi. Okay, all right. Is what I'm reading true that this thing already? I mean, it's 5 minutes old. How can it lose $500 million?
Yeah. Well, did you see it already dropped out of the top 100 apps downloaded on Apple? I like to keep up with that because I thought it was hilarious what was ahead of it. But now it's not even in the top 100.
Again, refresh everyone's memory.
It was behind an ASMR app where you would slice cubes of sand, Jim, for relaxation purposes, was ahead of Quibi, the $1 billion investment from Katzenberg and a whole bunch of gullible people.
All right, but again, let's be fair here. The whole conceit of this is television for very busy people, right? The idea is that they were supposed to watch these 5 to 10 minute long shows on their phones. Then there was the pandemic, and we all went home and sat on our couches and watched The Wire, the entire show,
or played Animal Crossing.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, that nobody was on their phone. So this stumbled straight out of the gate. And so Katzenberg has been upfront about this, the fact of, if he had started this, they wouldn't have gone ahead with the launch in the middle of a pandemic.
But I actually think, that the idea of having it only be on your phone is a good idea for kids today because they've always got their phone out and they're doing something else, right? They're watching something on TV. They're looking at something online. I think it just speaks to the quality of the shows and the lack of, because, at one point it was supposed to be that when you would turn the phone from 90 degrees upright, that it would actually change the format of the show. Like it would change your point of view or it would be a different angle or something. But that seems to not have been implemented hardly at all. And I think the shows just suck and nobody's interested in them. And even if they're making all these efforts to put them on TV and to have a YouTube channel, and it's it's already admitting defeat if you're not sticking to your guns. You also saw that the head of marketing has already left. This is Hindenburg-esque folly.
But didn't this just launch? Are we 4 weeks in? How long
that's
ago
the amazing thing, Jim, is there is supposedly years of content ready for this thing. So God knows where it's going to go. There's a Quibi version of The Fugitive, Jim. And I had a friend that said, when it's done, it's just going to be on regular TV or whatever, or syndicated or whatever. There's nothing special about this. So I wonder if the remaining hours of if this thing if Quibi just closes tomorrow, where all this stuff is going to go. That's kind of an interesting question.
Well, speaking of where things are going to go, what do you make of last week's Trolls World Tour debacle? And let me explain. When I say debacle, well, first of all, Universal started off the week with what they thought was good news. They were talking about the Trolls World Tour that debuted the 6th of April, I want to say.
Yeah.
Right before Easter. went the premium video on demand route. And Jeff Shell, CEO of NBCUniversal, comes out and proceeds to, I think we talked about this in an early show. They had said that they had the best one-day gross and then best weekend, but, no data to back that up. But with, I want to say, a piece for Variety, they came out and said, look, we, inside of 3 weeks on video on demand, we made as much as the original Trolls made in 2016 during a 5-month-long
Right.
theatrical release.
Right.
And I want to say his name is Adam Aaron, who's the gentleman in charge of the AMC theaters. And he just kind of lost his mind over this. The fact that here was Jeff Shell not only touting, the numbers that Trolls World Tour had done, but announcing the Pete Davidson project, the
Yes.
King of Staten Island.
And I just got a press release today that The High Note, which is a movie with Tracy Ellis Ross and Dakota Johnson, is actually going to be on VOD the same way in June.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But basically what happened is that AMC said, okay, since Universal is not respecting the theatrical release window, AMC will no longer support Universal films. They won't show them. And given that AMC is the largest theater cinema chain in North America, that hurt. Then right behind that, Cineworld, which owns Regal, which is the second most popular or largest number cinema chain in North America, they said they would stand by Universal. And then I guess the European Theaters Owner Union came in, and there was all of this noise about, oh boy, this is bad. And then toward the end of the week, there were all these people like, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, face it, next year, inside of 1 3-month-long period, there's Fast and Furious 9, Jurassic World Dominion, and Minions Rise of Gru.
Yeah.
3 films that are virtually guaranteed to make $1 billion. And when you really turn a profit on how, it's not even the ticket sales. It's come in and buy the $5 soda and the $10 tub of popcorn. This is all talk. This isn't actually going to happen, right? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I also thought it was really interesting because the AMC City Walk, which is at Universal, and the one that I go to a lot, it went through this 10-month-long, multi-million-dollar renovation.
Yep.
And you go upstairs, and I remember doing the tour when it was right about to open. And they said, you see this starburst chandelier. It's supposed to emulate the light coming from behind the globe and the opening of the Universal logo. I mean, that is how universal this AMC is. Okay. And for them to say we're closing it down, it's well, are you telling me there's not going to be a package to see the new Jurassic World and then to ride the Jurassic World ride in the park? Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Come on. Yeah.
While we're talking about future releases, so this past Friday, Disney announced that a live-action version of Ron Clements and John Musker's Hercules from '97. Kind of interesting who's producing this one. The Russo brothers, right?
Yeah. So, Joe and Anthony. Did you watch Extraction yet on Netflix?
It is on my list. Unfortunately, again, I have this friend, Drew Taylor, who wrote this immense story about all the superhero movies that I have to rewatch. So I have to go through the earlier Chris Hemsworth work before I can get to the new stuff. But I heard it's amazing. More to the point, he was just yesterday acknowledging it's the largest success for a streamed film, right?
Yeah. It's the most watched Netflix movie ever or something. So yeah, I think doing Hercules would be pretty cool. I mean, you brought up the fact that you wonder if it'll put in jeopardy the Broadway version.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Well, the irony is, we are still waiting on the live-action Mulan, which got pushed back from March now to July 24th. But there's already talk of, early development on Mulan 2.
Right. Will Mushu finally get his revenge?
Well, all right. As long as we're talking about unlikely sequels, what did you think of the whole Space Jam? First of all, what's the subtitle?
A New Legacy, Jim. Well, first of all, I thought it was so funny because LeBron debuted the logo on his Instagram, and the video was backwards. You couldn't actually read the hat he was wearing. So then Warner Brothers sent out another email that was like, here's an actual video of it. Yeah, I mean, we all know the first Space Jam is pretty terrible, so I'm hoping for more with this one. But yeah, you're right. It does look very Space Mountain-y, the logo.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to make it all the way through to release. Can you, I know we talked about this off air. Can you talk at all about, was it what LeBron showed at a party?
Yes. So yeah, okay. It was like a rap party or something, and he showed these images that contained what appears to be the Joker, Pennywise, Voldemort, The Mask, the Jim Carrey, The Mask, and Jim is coming back apparently to do the voice. Yeah, so I'm obsessed with Space Jam 2 and how bizarre it's going to be. But, you know, speaking of ILM, they're the ones handling the animation this time, so it'll be very interesting.
You know, and again, it's interesting because we were just talking about Mulan, and the original Mulan from '98 was co-directed by Tony Bancroft, and it turns out, I think he announced on his Twitter feed back in January that he's actually animating on this film. So Space Jam 2, or excuse me, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Again, I'm always happy to have him animating again, but I want to see this. But we still have a release date of July 16th, 2021.
Counting down the days, Jim. I'm counting down the days.
All right. Well, speaking of counting down, we've talked previously about the Olafs at home, and there were supposed to be 20 of them, and I guess the final one, Sounds, dropped this past Friday.
Well, there were 2 that dropped on Friday. Did you see the other one, Jim?
I did not. Is this the hand-drawn?
Yeah, this is one of them was hand-drawn on Friday. So I thought both were really cute. I loved Sounds.
Okay.
Yeah, but the other one is really cute. Just look on Gad's Twitter, or I'll find it and send it to you.
Okay, but weren't there supposed to be 2 hand-drawn?
There were, yeah. I reached out to Disney Animation, and they basically said that the second hand-drawn, which was announced in EW, they just didn't have time to do it, that the animator is being pulled in a number of different directions, and they just didn't have the time. So, sorry. Maybe in the winter when this thing comes back and we're all stuck inside again.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Get it. All right.
Staying positive, Jim. Staying positive.
Okay. Before we move on here, just want to thank Hiram Osmond, who basically wrote Hurt on this with a lot of other very talented people at Disney, and likewise Josh, who evidently recorded all of these little bits of dialogue and that sort of thing at his home.
He says while wearing a mock turtleneck, so we'll have to take his word on that one.
Okay. No, okay. So there was supposed to be 2 hand-drawn, there 1 hand-drawn. I mean, that's a hard reality of the world of animation. You make a plan, and situations change. And in fact, well, when we get back, we're going to talk about what happened with poor Kevin Lima and the monkeys of Mumbai.
Oh, the sick day struggle is real. But with Dimetapp, it doesn't have to be. Children's Dimetapp works quickly to soothe multiple bothersome cough, cold, and allergy symptoms in a single dose. Our fast-acting formulas are designed with kids in mind, so they get everything they need and nothing they don't. Available in liquid and on-the-go chewable tablets. Tap the banner now to shop at Amazon and say goodbye to the sick day struggle with Dimetapp. Use as directed.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Before we get to Kevin and his monkeys, I wanted to take a minute to talk about Finn the human and Jake the dog.
Never heard of him, Jim. Never heard of him.
Okay. So, all right. Adventure Time, the series, wrapped its 10-season run on Cartoon Network back on September 2018. I want to say you and I enjoyed it. That was basically an hour-long finale, if I remember correctly.
What a great episode.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that was in 2018. That is blowing my mind, Jim.
Well, time moves fast, except of course in April of 2020. Which did you see that there's a T-shirt out there that 2020 is a special leap year, that February had 29 days and March had 31 and April had 3,000. So, but anyway, so again, Finn and Jake are back in Adventure Time Distant Lands, so this is 4-hour-long specials, right?
Yeah, it was described as a mini series, but it looks like they're pretty different, each one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Is there any one out of the four that you're especially looking?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I love BMO. He's got his own episode, or it's got its own episode. I don't know if we gender a video game console computer, but I'm very into this Marceline and Princess Bubblegum episode. Sounds great. I mean, come on. I mean, who doesn't want more adventure time in their life, Jim?
No doubt, no doubt. Supposedly, this goes live when HBO Max goes live on May 27th. But if you can't wait till then for some new animation, you should pivot over to Hulu, where on May 12th we get Crossing Swords, which I've never quite associated adult humor with preschool toys.
Yeah, it's a stop motion show where it's set in a medieval kind of fantasy world, and they're little wooden preschool blocks, essentially.
Yeah.
But there's full frontal nudity and violence and everything else.
I don't know. I much like again, I hate to play favorites, but I love what the guys at Stupid Buddies do. So it's just sort of like, please go watch this. I want 1,500 seasons of Robot Chicken, if possible. But again, adult humor and preschool toys, sometimes the best movies come out of a weird mix of elements. And which brings us now to Monkeys of Mumbai, which was supposed to be a Bollywood musical by way of, I guess Mumbai actually does have an infestation of monkeys.
Well, did you ever see Monkey Kingdom, the Disney nature movie?
Oh, I did not.
Okay, well, it's on Disney Plus. It's I don't know if it's Mumbai, but it is. It's really interesting the way that these monkeys kind of coexist with humans, and they're infesting like ancient shrines, and it's really it's very visually striking. I'm a big fan of all the sort of Disney nature movies, but
sure,
yeah, it's really cool. So if you want to get kind of an idea of what this might have been like. In real life, watch that documentary. Okay.
Well, and of course, Drew and I have talked about Kevin Lima relatively recently here on Fine Tuning. In fact, Drew wrote that wonderful piece about the 25th anniversary of the Goofy movie. And you actually got to talk with Kevin as part of that, right?
I did, but we were talking Goofy, Jim. We had no time for Monkeys of Mumbai. But
well, that's what's kind of interesting, is that on the heels of a Goofy movie and people talking about it 25 years later, do you want to read what Kevin tweeted out on April 18th of this year?
I've got to find it. But basically he said, I'll paraphrase, Jim. How about that?
Okay. There we go.
He said, I have been screwed over twice in my career, basically, right? By Jeffrey Katzenberg. The first was with Goofy movie, which I talked about in my piece, that he kind of, it was a Jeffrey Katzenberg passion project for some reason. And when he left, all the kind of momentum went out of its sails, and, it got pushed back and sort of opened without ceremony. And he said the second time I was screwed was with Monkeys of Mumbai, when Jeffrey left DreamWorks and left a number of projects, including Monkeys of Mumbai, high and dry. And you and I mean, we were talking before the show, just how many DreamWorks projects just evaporated overnight. And it is just such a tragedy.
Well, I mean, take, for example, BOO, the Bureau of
Otherworldly Operations, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, they were inches away from being done with that. And they had Melissa McCarthy as a voice. And I want to say Dan Aykroyd as well. By the way, you sent me along a list of the canceled project, The Pig Scrolls. What is The Pig Scrolls?
Jim, I can't get into it. This is a kid's show. No, there were what else? The
Larkin.
Yeah, which became a really mediocre short film.
It did, but they had done all the work on the rigs and the backgrounds and that sort of thing, so they wanted to get something out of it. But basically what happened here, folks, was that April of 2016 is when, let's be honest, Jeffrey Katzenberg had been looking to sell DreamWorks Animation for a number of years prior to this, but finally set it up that the company would be purchased by Universal. And we've talked at length on other shows about how now DreamWorks Animation is part of the Universal family, along with Illuminations Entertainment. And just last week, we talking about how the Lego films have now made their home at Universal. But supposedly, the way this worked is Universal was mostly interested in the already proven IP, the Shreks, the Puss in Boots, the Trolls, and Secret Life of Pets, and anything else was kind of like, yeah, that's fine. And this is the thing with Monkeys in Mumbai. It was 2.5 years in development at that point. In fact, I want to say they had just started animation.
Yeah. But if you go on Kevin's Twitter, he lays out the whole story, which is amazing.
Does. It does. Do you want to do the story, or?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, because I was sort of reading this backward. I didn't know he had a Twitter until you told me about it. So I was sort of reading it backwards, but it seemed to be about two monkeys that were their brothers, and they're living on the streets of Mumbai, and they find their way into a movie theater and are convinced that the movie is like a deity or something.
Yeah, Huwanman, I want to say, the Indian deity. But yeah, evidently they're in the movie theater because they're basically eating the snacks off the floor.
Right.
And they see this movie with the monkey god. I guess it's the brother whose name is Deepu. He's the ultimate optimist. And that's the thing. He just sort of embraces this character. But at the same time, this has songs that are written by Stephen Schwartz. In fact, for example, in at least one iteration of the movie, the brothers are making their way home through the streets of Mumbai, and they go into the territory of another group of monkeys, and it looks like a battle is going to take place, and suddenly it's a dance battle. It becomes this giant Bollywood production number. And
and you know who was doing the score was A.R. Rahman, who won the Oscar for the score for Slumdog Millionaire.
So
yeah,
and this is the thing. If you go to Kevin Lima's Twitter feed, he's been placing over like the last 2 weeks. He's been putting up all of this amazing concept art, and you just look at this stuff, and it's like, I want to see this movie now. It had such startling design, a very appealing take on the characters, and a great color palette, and the whole notion of the very thing you were talking about with the Disney nature, monkeys in the city thing. This weird, wonderful disconnect, between these animals in the city. And in fact, there's one great piece of concept art where the two brothers are basically trying to buy a car that is, they're flattened against the wall. And there's that just this little piece of space that they're trying to wiggle through. Again, it just looks like a hugely appealing project. But to hear Kevin tell the story that when it got shelved, he was given permission to walk it around to other studios. And so he'd take the art, he'd take the music, he'd do the pitch, and everybody would go, oh, this looks like a hit. And then he'd mention the kicker that because DreamWorks evidently was allowed to write off the cost of developing the film on their taxes, the only way that any new production company could pick that up, could pick up the film and proceed with it, was if they basically paid back the government for the write-off. And we were talking tens of millions of dollars. That's what DreamWorks accountants had decided, this is what we're going to say, what we spent on the film. And that was the deal breaker. Everybody, would just hear that number and it's like, look, this looks like it's a wonderful film, but, I can't spend that much money up front, and let alone after that come up with the actual money to then produce the film. So just a heartbreaker.
A lot. There's so many of those movies. And then we don't even know really what DreamWorks is up to beyond the next couple of years. And it's, you hope that one of these will come back from the dead, but it doesn't seem likely, Jim.
Well, the last thing, Chris Melarandri, the gentleman who's in charge of Illuminations, who's now basically for lack of a better term, remember when John Lasseter was sort of the animation grand poobah for both Disney and Pixar?
Right.
Chris is evidently now in that same role for DreamWorks Animation and Illumination Entertainment. And when he was talking about the DreamWorks Animation acquisition, they were talking about, we want to make another Shrek movie. We want to bring back the original voice talent to do another film. And it just kind of kills me that it's like, here was this. This was a brand new thing they could have turned the key on. And it's like, no, we want to go back to that.
Well, Bob Perchetti, one of the guys that directed the Spider-Verse, is doing the Puss in Boots 2, Jim, so...
Okay, well, because of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, as good as it was, I'll give that one a pass.
Okay.
So anyway, but seriously, we need to do a deep dive on this. Especially Boo. I just remember so much art, so much stuff coming out.
Seth
from
Rogen was in it. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then there's the Shadow. We could do a whole thing about the Shadow movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll circle around to those movies on a future podcast. But first, folks, we have to finish our Patreon thing. Sorry you missed it. By the way, Drew, did I tell you we've already gotten fan mail on this show?
I saw that.
Yeah.
People are ready for it, Jim. We got to do it.
I know. This is my fault, folks. We're going to be working on it this week, so hang on. We'll be episode 1. In fact, again, back to Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg, their dive restaurant. But yeah, if you folks have memories of this, please pass them along. We'll incorporate them in the show. In the meantime, Drew, while they're waiting on that from us, what's up over with Light the Fuse?
Well, we're trying to get somebody for our 100th episode, Jim. I don't know who we're getting, but we're trying very hard. This week, we're going through all the video games based on the franchise, so that's kind of fun. And then we've got a bunch of great guests through, August, I want to say. So as long as we can nail down somebody for the 100th.
I wonder
Desperate, Jim. Desperate at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, I wonder who that could be. All right. Well, and on our side of the street, we, of course, have a Disney Dish with Len Testa. We have, of course, Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Z. And I would imagine he and I are both going to be wading into the Disney Gallery, the Mandalorian thing. Marvelous Disney with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits a lot of the podcasts here. Likewise, Universal Joint. In fact, Nancy is editing an episode of that even as we speak here. And just this past Sunday, Michelle Valladolid and I recorded a brand new I Want That. And
thank God, Jim. Thank God.
I know. Our long national nightmare is over. Yeah. So anyway, tell you what, folks, if you could do Drew and myself a favor, if you could head on over to iTunes and not only rate and recommend Fine Tuning, but also rate and recommend Light the Fuse, because, again, there's so many great stories on that show. Also, if you really, really, really what you're listening to here, if you could head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful. And Drew, social media-wise, where can folks find you?
Drew Tailored, like the tailored suit. Find me on social media there. And I wanted to tell you, Jim, one of our listeners on Fine Tuning became a Patreon subscriber on Light the Fuse. So, everything's connected, Jim, is all I got to say.
There we go. So happy to hear that. That's cool. Okay, Jim Hill Media side, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, again, as Jim Hill Media, and on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And I guess that's going to do it for this week. And, unless, of course, another fist fight breaks out between Universal and AMC theaters, and then we'll be back. So, but until next time, thanks for listening.